Something I've been wanting to do for a while is a video reflection of my exhibition, Remembering the Lightkeeper. I did this exhibition in my placement at the University of Aberdeen. I finished it May 2019 and it was supposed to run till June 2020, but obviously because of COVID-19, all museums around the world basically are closed. So this sort of comes at an awkward time, but also a good time because at this time in the museum sector, virtual museums and, video museums are becoming more of a thing, sort of hashtag museum at home. So I thought I would do my interpretation of Remembering the Lightkeeper because I was the main curator of that exhibition. I'll show you pictures that I took a year ago, and I'll talk to you about Fraserburgh, which is where I did my placement. I'm gonna first talk to you about the University of Aberdeen, but in doing this I'm also gonna acknowledge the museum studies students at the University of Aberdeen and also around the world. I know people who have me on Instagram and Facebook are probably tired of hearing me talk about this exhibition, but really and truly it meant a lot in my professional life. It meant a lot in my personal life. It gave me a lot of confidence to talk about the research I'm interested in. For example, before this year I wouldn't have had the confidence to do a video like this, but really and truly it meant so much to me. I don't need to tell you guys this, but the state of the world now is that universities are closed and people who are doing placements and co-ops can't do that anymore. So I just feel bad for all these students, and that's why I went on about why my placement meant so much to me. I know from speaking to my coordinator of museum studies that the people at the University of Aberdeen, they have to do like a virtual exhibition now, and obviously they can't do their placements, so this is me sort of acknowledging that. So to begin with, I did my placement at Fraserburgh, which is roughly 41 miles away from Aberdeen, where I was studying and where I was living. Fraserburgh was built around the Kinnaird Head Castle, which was built around the 16th century. Eventually castles went out of fashion, which caused the castle to become a lighthouse, the Kinnaird Head Lighthouse, which is the first lighthouse on mainland Scotland. After a while, lighthouses became manned, so then that lighthouse became the Museum of Scottish Lighthouses, which is where I would do my placement. Lots of people, including me, don't actually know that the Kinnaird Head Lighthouse is actually a castle, and alternatively, a lot of people go to that museum expecting to see a castle and a lighthouse, which technically is true, but I think they expect two different entities, which is kind of interesting. The fact that I didn't know much about the history of Kinnaird Head or lighthouses in general turned out to be a good thing for my exhibition, because the collections manager of the museum told me that he wanted somebody to look at the information in the collections with a fresh pair of eyes, which, as I talk about the exhibition, will become clear. As it turns out, the fact that I was an international student in Scotland as well proved to impact my experience, because I really didn't know anything about lighthouses. I really didn't know anything about Scotland, so really I was learning about both as I did my placement. My first project of the placement was to look in the museum collections and see what kind of themes I could come up with. As I was doing that, what was becoming clear is that this museum and the collections are very machine heavy, are very man-made, and are very male-centric. That was explored in the exhibitions, but also very clear in the collections. But interestingly, as I was looking at the collections, I also came across some objects that I wasn't expecting to see, such as a knitting machine, such as a sewing machine, such as clothing. These things, to me, painted a picture of the Lightkeeper's domestic life. This was kind of represented in the museum in a small capacity, like just one wall, but that was around lots of large objects like lenses and very big machines like foghorn. The collections manager told me I could do anything for my exhibition, anything within budget and anything that had the objects to support it. What was becoming clear as I was looking through the collections was that there was this underrepresented theme of domestic and very personal and creative objects that weren't being represented. Although I think it's obvious, something that I think was underrepresented in the exhibitions was that lightkeepers lived a very solitary and isolated life. Something that I learned in my placement was that there were two kinds of lighthouses. There was one on the shore where you would have access to community, to school, if you had children, so you could be with your family. But then there was also the dreaded lighthouses where you would be like in the middle of the ocean, and even if you got sick or something like that, it would take days for somebody to rescue you. Some of this was represented, like I found a lot of rescue items, a lot of emergency objects in the collections, but I also found a lot of crafts, a lot of clothing, like I said, a lot of things that represented the very long hours that people spent in a lighthouse, which, speaking of COVID-19, this is something that people voluntarily did. They voluntarily isolated themselves. Once I started talking about these objects to my collections manager, he became very interested. He made some indications that he was aware these objects were in the collections, so I think it really interested in him that I had found a way to sort of highlight these objects. The manager of the museum was very excited too. One of the objects she remembered growing up with, so I was really interested in the fact that people who weren't as familiar with lighthouses could be familiar with these objects and could remember them. Something museum people understand as like collective memory, domestic memory, that sort of stuff. Did I just come up with a museum word? Domestic memory? See? I got this. Just so you guys know, I am actually flipping through my dissertation as I talk about this. Yeah, museum studies project. I actually tried to do this blog as like a written format, but I found out that it was too much like my actual dissertation, so I thought talking about it would be better. It was actually during this promotion process that my collections manager made a Facebook post on the Museum of Scottish Lighthouses Facebook promoting the exhibition, and then people actually started asking for a virtual format of the collections, so here I am doing that. After the theme and objects were decided, that's when things started getting really sort of surreal. My collections manager, because he's very local in the community, he had connections to the local newspaper, so that's when the promotion started and I started being in the newspaper and stuff like that, which was really weird. So yeah, that was a thing. Actually, while I'm talking about this newspaper article, I should actually explain who I'm with. This is Bill Goltz. He was the last lightkeeper in the Scottish Lighthouse in 1998 before they became manned. So my collections manager also organized that for me, which was really cool. And also why I keep talking about this exhibition, because it was so cool for me. I had a slideshow in the exhibition where the background was Bill Goltz' song that he sang for the end of the Lightkeepers, so that was cool. When he came to my exhibition, he didn't even flinch at hearing his song over and over again because it was on loop. After that experience, I also ended up having lunch with him in the cafe upstairs, which was kind of funny too. Yeah, I thought our conversation was over, but then I went to have lunch and that ended up happening too. He's actually a really nice guy. So the opening of the exhibition was actually the end of my placement, but I ended up going to the Lighthouse Museum again. Twice actually, once with my parents when they came to visit me in Scotland, and another time with some friends of mine, some museum studies students. I've attached some pictures from both, so obviously this time meant a lot to me, and obviously I'm very sad for people who don't get to go through this experience. I know my collections manager said that if they were to have another placement student, they probably wouldn't have the same role. They wouldn't have an exhibition or stuff like that, so I feel very lucky. I can put this on my CV. I can remember this forever, basically. I know earlier in this video I said I didn't know very much about lighthouses before I started this placement, but now I feel like I've developed a sort of fascination with lighthouses. I have a couple books on lighthouses now. I even have a little mini ceramic lighthouse, which I think I got in Shetland when I was traveling, and that's when I realized I had more of a fascination than I thought. Also, I already showed this, but I finished my dissertation where I talked about the Museum of Scottish Lighthouses. Just to end this, I hope everybody's being safe. I know I'm not as bad off as other people are in this situation, but it's still a very weird time, and I wish everybody good things. Thank you.